A tribute to Ron Brown on Larry King Live tonight.
Warm weather in the Plain States coming to an abrupt end as we're seeing cold air come in from the north down through the Plain States. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be much cooler in here. I'll show you more of that in just one moment. There's rainfall preceding the cold front and some snowfall here in the upper Midwest, and a few flakes flying across much of the Rockies, too, as you see right in here. Take a look now at predicted high temperatures for tomorrow. Still warm today in the southeast, very warm, as a matter of fact. We're going to see that hang on with 70s all the way up into Virginia tomorrow. But here's the big change. Yesterday, we're seeing temperatures here up into the 80s, and tomorrow only the 40s and 50s. You get up here far enough to the north, 30s, and even a few 20s along the Canadian border. The far west, temperatures running in the 60s and 70s for the most part. Here's your forecast weather map, and here's the aforementioned cold front pushing down through the Plain States into the lower Mississippi River Valley. Look for scattered showers all along this frontal boundary, and then snowfall scattered about in the Great Lakes area. Don't think it'd be real heavy, but near the lakes, some of the snow could be heavy, some of the lake effect snow, but the widespread stuff, I don't think you're looking at more than 2 or 3 inches on the outset. But we're getting very close to Easter, and places like Chicago still really caught up in the dead of winter as far as the weather is concerned. And here's that snowfall that I spoke of across the Rockies. That's going to continue for the most part throughout the night and on into tomorrow. Of course, as you get down far enough to the south and at the lower elevations, it will be in the form of rain. The rainfall continues along this portion of the front as it continues to push to the south and east, and a bit of snow will continue in the Great Lakes area as the area of low pressure pushes on across. We will see sunshine across the Plain States and the upper Midwest as this area of high pressure fills on in behind this frontal boundary, but it is going to be cool in here, and it looks as though that cool weather is going to continue right on through the holiday weekend. In the far west, sunshine and pleasant temperatures, particularly so in California. That's the latest look at the weather. Now stay tuned for more on CNN.
Live from the world's financial capital, New York City, this is Moneyline with Lou Dobbs.
Good evening. A U.S. trade mission to the Balkans has ended in tragedy in Croatia. The aircraft carrying Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and up to a dozen American business leaders crashed just outside the Adriatic port of Dubrovnik. 33 people were aboard the plane. There are, at this hour, no reports of survivors. Brown had been traveling in the region with business executives exploring opportunities in the Balkans, and to begin our extensive coverage tonight of the crash at the White House, Claire Shipman. Claire?
Lou, officials here, the president first and foremost, are shocked and saddened by the tragic accident, and they're still working to sort through what have been often conflicting details coming in all day of the accident. An extensive search and rescue operation is still underway in the mountains on the coast of Croatia. Pentagon officials say they've been working for hours to get to the remote crash scene.
There are helicopters on the ground at the Dubrovnik airport, U.S. helicopters that held about 50 U.S. personnel. Initially, they made an attempt to land at the crash site, but because of the weather, were unable to do that. And so they are as rapidly as possible working their way up to where the crash site is.
The U.S. says the chance that anyone may have survived, including Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, is slim. Estes says the crash does not appear to be the result of any hostile action. In Washington, President Clinton visited Commerce Secretary Ron Brown's family and then made a clearly heartfelt statement to workers at the Commerce Department about his good friend.
He was one of the best advisors and ablest people I ever knew. And he was very, very good at everything he ever did. Whether he was the Commerce Secretary or a civil rights leader or something else, he was always out there just giving it his all.
Mr. Clinton also brought a morale-boosting message from Brown's wife.
I asked Alma, I said, Alma, what do you want me to say when I go to the Commerce Department? She said, tell them Ron was proud of them, that he liked them, that he believed in them, and that he fought for the Commerce Department, and tell him that you're going to do that now, which I thought was an incredible thing.
Brown was on a mission of economic support to Bosnia. Traveling with him were a number of business leaders and corporation heads, but an official list hasn't been released. The Pentagon says there were 33 passengers aboard the aircraft, including a 6-person crew. Lou, this trip really exemplified what many supporters said was Ron Brown's greatest strength as Commerce Secretary, His ability to not only rally corporate heads, but the powers that be in other countries behind a specific cause. In this case, of course, the reconstruction of post-war Bosnia. And on a final note, we have late word from the State Department that they are saying officially now that Ron Brown is presumed to be dead. Lou?
Claire, and one of the difficulties we should point out to our viewers throughout the day, the list, the manifest for those aboard the aircraft with the Commerce Secretary. A number of those families have not been notified, and CNN President Tom Johnson has made the decision that we will not be reporting any of those names until all families are notified. At this point, the State Department, have they given us any indication as to when they will have that notification process completed?
They haven't. In fact, what we've heard right now is they're not expecting to have that completed tonight. It's a really tricky process because the manifest is sketchy. It includes names of people who may not have been on the plane, and they're working hard to verify all that, but it's probably not going to be until tomorrow that we get that list.
Okay. Claire, thank you very much. Claire Shipman reporting from the White House. Well, in his tenure as Commerce Secretary, Ron Brown was credited with strengthening ties between big business and the Clinton administration, but the Commerce Secretary was also dogged by some controversy. Kelly Arena now takes a look at the life and career of Ron Brown.
Or to defend the Constitution of the United States.
The first African-American Commerce Secretary went from the streets of Harlem to the inner circles of the White House.
U.S. exports equals U.S. jobs.
Many in corporate America say his track record speaks for itself.
He saw the importance of America being into places early. In relation with other countries, being there early, providing essential services, is very important for future relations with the country.
Brown quickly took a high profile, then almost immediately became controversial. He was accused, then cleared, of accepting a bribe from a Vietnamese businessman. And last year, an independent counsel was appointed to look into alleged financial wrongdoing. Even so, his reputation among business leaders is strong.
Not only the North American Free Trade Agreement, but also the Uruguay Round Agreement in the GATT was approved and adopted by the U.S. Congress. Those were very tough, very controversial fights, and Ron Brown was out front and on point early on.
Business groups say his leadership will make him a standout in commerce history. A broker with keen political savvy who bypassed the Washington business establishment to work directly with CEOs. His colleagues agree.
His judgment and experience in opening markets to American business overseas were unequaled in the government of the United States.
His most recent battle, a fight with Republican budget cutters to keep the Commerce Department in business. On that front, the president says he'll pick up where his friend left off. Kelly Arena, CNN Financial News, Washington.
Washington, of course, stunned by the tragedy, and there has been an outpouring of praise, support, prayers for Ron Brown and the others on the trade mission, an outpouring of support that is decidedly nonpartisan. Robert Mossbacher, the Commerce Secretary under President Bush, had this to say about his successor. Quote, Ron Brown is outdoing what we think is in the best tradition of the Commerce Department, the U.S. government helping business, what we all try to do, that's selling U.S. goods, services abroad. And he has been tireless in doing this.
Moneyline is brought to you by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world.
Beautiful, isn't it? The family farm, owned and operated by men and women who are motivated by pride and a deep love of the land. Parents who pass on the knowledge and tradition of farming to their children. But the family farm is much more than picturesque. It is one of America's strongest resources, the most productive farm system in the world. The American farmer is also a steward of the land, using modern tillage practices to ensure the land will be productive in the generations to come. Why do we at ADM care so much about the family farm? Because we depend on its high productivity in order to fulfill our role as supermarket to the world.
Today, investment opportunity is global. and there's a new way to access it. Country baskets. 9 separate baskets of stocks, each representing a different country's stock market. Country baskets are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. For more information, call 1-800-233-7856. Country baskets, where in the world to invest.
The merger of Chase Manhattan and Chemical Banking completed earlier this week, the deal creating the country's largest bank, $300 billion in assets. And joining me now, the man leading the powerhouse, Walter Shipley, the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the new Chase Manhattan. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be with you, Lou.
And congratulations on pulling off yet another merger. The fact is that banks are becoming fewer and the ones that remain are becoming bigger. Is this the trend that we'll see continue?
I do think that you'll continue to see consolidation in the banking business and in the financial sector broadly. It's become government policy, frankly, to have the banking industry consolidated in this country, and we're just being part of that. So.
You're just being part of it, and you are also the biggest. What advantages will being the biggest in this case give you?
Being biggest and being a significant competitor in the lines of businesses in which you compete is a corollary. To merely size of and of itself is not of that great a value, but being a leader in the individual businesses is of value.
In terms of banking, your industry is no different than any other, undergoing tremendous changes because of technology, changing marketplaces. What do you see as the principal competitive threat right now to your new bank, despite the fact that it is the country's biggest?
I don't really see a competitive threat. I see competitive changes that are taking place in the world economy and the need to adapt to those, and I think we are better prepared to adapt to those because of what we've created. And I would put technology in the front line of that. Branch banking, as we've traditionally known it, is undergoing transformation as the consumer learns that they sometimes prefer other access to products and services. And
is retail banking an aspect that you want to grow tremendously?
Retail banking we will grow, but we will not grow it the way it traditionally looks to you with large branches of banks throughout the country. I think the people are increasingly saying they like to access services through technology, and as they do that, less and less reliance will take place on the branches.
With that change in technology and what I take you to say, a change really in consumer taste, what does that change in technology and change in the marketplace mean to an institution like yours? Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates said a year ago that banks are dinosaurs. Do you ever worry that perhaps you're just the biggest dinosaur?
Well, I think Bill Gates was talking about banks that weren't prepared to change and adapt. We are changing and adapting, and I think most of the big banks are doing that. And but if they don't, I would agree with the comment that banks have the potential to become dinosaurs.
And as you look out to a global economy, you are among the top 10 banks, certainly, but there are much larger banks out there. Is that necessary, that level of scale, in order to compete in the global marketplace in banking?
Yes, I think it is, especially if you're in the consumer business internationally. You have to be very big in that. We are not a major consumer player, but we are a large wholesale investment bank on the international side, and you have to have scale to do that.
Wall Street is laudatory of what you've accomplished over the past 5 years, but still some question remains about a 5 to 7% growth in overall revenue, some skepticism. Is there any good basis for that skepticism, do you think?
The economy is not growing at 5 to 7%, so the question is, how are we going to get 5 to 7% growth? And the answer is, with the scale that we have in our businesses that I talked about earlier, we have a better ability to concentrate investment, capital investment, people investment, and expense dollar investments into those sectors of the financial industry that have higher growth potential. And by doing that, overall, we are confident we can produce that 5 to 7% growth rate.
Where are you going to concentrate your resources, your capital, your people? Which sectors?
There are about a half a dozen or so. I would list them as mortgage banking and credit card, mutual fund, insurance sales on the consumer side, private banking, and on the wholesale side on investment banking, merger and acquisition advisory service, corporate finance, syndicated finance, public debt underwriting.
Diversified concentration.
Diversified.
Barnett Bank's winning a major case in terms of insurance. You're talking about insurance as a principal area in which you want to concentrate. What forms of insurance?
Primarily sales of insurance. We do not see ourselves as competing in the underwriting side, but we do think that we can do a good job of distributing the insurance product to individuals.
And Glass-Steagall is still very much with us, but under tremendous reshaping forces. What's your position on Glass-Steagall?
Glass-Steagall is in its last days or last months, hopefully not last years, and there are very few people who are opposed to reform of Glass-Steagall, and we are clearly supportive of that. We are major investment bankers today, but we do have limitations under the current laws, so we would like to see legislative change that further liberalizes that.
You've carried off successfully, some on Wall Street say absolutely brilliantly, the acquisition of Manny Hanny, and now taking on the Chase name along with that acquisition. But you've also had to shed a lot of jobs. A lot of people have lost their jobs. What is the morale like? What is the culture like as a result of the changes that you have engineered over these years?
Let me start by asking you to use the term merge as opposed to acquisition, because it's a very fundamental philosophy behind how we've put these banks together, because of our very strong belief that you can only add real value when you bring the best of both organizations together, and that's what we have done. In the process, there has been overlap and some job eliminations. We have dealt with those in a way that we expect to be the standard or benchmark for American industry in terms of fairness and equity, in terms of severance, in terms of medical benefits, in terms of job training and helping people find other jobs. And in doing that, we think that those employees that stay feel good about the company. And they certainly feel good about the tremendous potential for the new Chase in what we're in the process of creating.
Okay. Walter Shipley, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Chairman, Chase Manhattan, thank you. Well, coming up next, we'll have a complete wrap-up for you of all the activity on Wall Street. We'll tell you about the largest initial public offering in history just one day away. Stay with us.
What's the behavioral contribution of people to an organization's revenue stream? And how do all of the capital tools, including space, technology, furniture, play into leveraging people's behavior towards the next generation of what the organization is trying to be? Because that's where organizational health is found, in the revenue side of the organization, not just in the cost side, though both are appropriate in their own balance. The key ingredient in all of this, knowledge, understanding what it is that's really appropriate to do with space, the service tools.
The choices we make in life add up to define who we are, how we live, how our children will live, and what our lives will mean to others. So while the kind of suit you buy won't change the world, it is one of those choices. Hart, Schaffner, and Marx, for the quality of your life. Available at a fine store near you.
With more than 6,000 mutual funds, choosing the right one for you can be overwhelming. Charles Schwab helps simplify the process. We provide over 900 funds, many without loads or commissions, and many that financial advisors prefer most. Then to make it even easier, we use risk and return data for Morningstar to determine the historically high performers and put them all together in the Select List, only from Schwab. Call 1-800-5-NO-LOAD to get your free 6-month subscription.
It's a funny thing. All these guys built empires, made loads of money, yet rarely ever cracked a smile. At CNN-FF, we'll help you make a few bucks and have a good time doing it. CNN-FF, it's not the same old business. It's business unusual.
W.R. Grace is under attack. The California Public Employees Retirement System, or CalPERS, today joined a lawsuit filed against Grace by several large shareholders. The lawsuit seeks to recover millions of dollars paid to former CEO J.P. Bolduc, who resigned a year ago amid allegations of sexual harassment. The lawsuit alleges that Bolduc's $20 million severance package was awarded outside of his contract. CalPERS telling Moneyline that it considers the payment to be corporate waste. Grace, meanwhile, says the suit is without merit. On Wall Street today, a late rally pushing blue-chip stocks to a record high. The Dow Jones Industrials at 5,689.74, a gain of 18.06, a new record for the Dow. 102 points higher, by the way, the Dow over the past 3 sessions. And volume, still moderate trading, but and backing off from heavier trading over the past 2 sessions, almost 387 million shares. Declining issues, however, did beat out advancers by a margin of 110 issues. The composite rose 0.21 to a record. The S&P 500 up 0.62. The Dow Transports, airline stocks helping out, moving up 13.61, and the utilities finished unchanged. The NASDAQ Composite Index, 1,115.85, a gain of 4.56. Volume more than 529,700,000 shares. The American Exchange Composite, 574.32, another record for the Amex, which gained 1.67 on volume of more than 22 million shares. And tonight's Moneyline movers, Pan Am Sat gaining 1 1/8. The satellite systems operator considering a sale or merger of the company, also planning a $350 million share offering. The New York Times up $2.50 a share. Morgan Stanley forecasting strong first quarter earnings. Harrah's Entertainment rallied $3 a share. Takeover speculation in the gaming industry pushing casino stocks higher all across the board. A stock that's sure to be a mover tomorrow, the biggest initial public offering in history. Lucent Technologies, the equipment arm of AT&T, begins trading on the big board tomorrow. Kitty Pilgrim is here tonight with the story for us. Kitty?
Lou, the more than 100 million share offering of Lucent was priced late today at the high end of expectations, $27 a share.
Wall Street loves a hot IPO, and they don't get much better than Lucent.
We've seen the price going higher and higher before even trading begins. We'll probably see trade up maybe above $30.
But even with 111 million shares, some investors won't get into the heavily oversubscribed offering at the initial price.
It is the broker's discretion, not the firm's discretion, as to whether or not he or she is going to give you stock. And if you've been playing the game their way, you'll have a shot at getting some.
Investors are attracted to Lucent because of its growth potential. The telecommunications industry is booming, and Lucent, which includes most of AT&T's renowned research division, Bell Labs, is already viewed as a leader in the field.
We like Lucent Technologies for several reasons. We believe that once it's completely independent from AT&T, it will be able to pursue new markets internationally and in the area of wireless communications particularly. And we believe those 2 areas will drive future growth.
Analysts say Lucent does have its negatives. Its profits are seasonal. With 85% of earnings occurring in the fourth quarter, it carries a heavy load of debt. Most of the highly publicized and criticized AT&T layoffs will occur at Lucent, but analysts say that leaves the company lean and mean. Lucent hopes to raise $3.3 billion in the IPO. The 525 million Lucent shares left afterwards will be spun off to AT&T holders later this year.
But analysts say the dilution is already factored into Lucent's price, and they see the stock eventually climbing to $40 a share or higher. Lou?
Okay, Kitty, thank you. In other corporate news tonight, Daimler-Benz reporting it lost almost $4 billion last year. Massive restructuring costs. Daimler also canceling its dividend for the first time in 45 years. Diamond Fields Resource today accepting a $3.2 billion buyout bid from Canadian mining giant Inco, rejecting a sweetened offer from Falconbridge. Walt Disney today expanded business ties with Mattel, giving Mattel toy rights to all of its upcoming television and film projects for the next 3 years. Already in the works, products for Disney's upcoming Hunchback of Notre Dame. Ford Motor reporting a modest gain in its sales last month. Car and truck sales up almost 3%. The New York International Auto Show has opened in New York. It's clear that sport utility vehicles are still a huge draw. Auto factories have raced to convert car factories to make these hybrids between cars and trucks. And some are beginning to ask how long the craze will last. Catherine Barrett has the story from New York.
The Blazer, Cherokee, and Explorer. These bold names bring sizable profits to the big three. Sport utility vehicles have helped U.S. automakers wedge big-ticket items into American garages. The profit per truck on some luxury models is as much as $10,000. That's more than double the average car, and it's why Chrysler, Ford, and GM are betting heavily in research and development, production, and marketing. But can the party last forever? Auto executives are optimistic.
As long as we have gasoline at $1.25 a gallon, I think we're going to have people are going to opt for, vehicles that give them a lot of flexibility and so forth to go when they want to go, wherever they want to go. I think the biggest determinant, quite frankly, is fuel price.
So-called sport utes have a voracious appetite for gas. EPA mileage estimates are low, usually below 20 miles to the gallon, and that will hit consumers hard if pump prices rise. Some industry experts think the trend towards bigger and thirstier may be played out.
Right now, 1 of every 7 vehicles sold in the United States is a sport utility. But I think we're in the 7th inning of that game. The market has demand's largely been satisfied, and I think sport utilities, as we know them today, are going to change.
The Japanese are already launching 2 smaller, more fuel-efficient truck designs. It remains to be seen how quickly Detroit can react, but the last time Japan bet on smaller cars was 20 years ago, and then it took U.S. automakers a long time to catch up. Catherine Barrett, CNN Financial News, New York.
Coming up next on Moneyline, we'll tell you about a company that knows all about Hollywood endings, staging an unlikely 9th inning comeback, Walt Disney's bid for a piece of professional baseball. Next on Moneyline.
Don't let a new car payment be a financial burden. Call 1-800-32-SMART about Smart Lease by GMAC. It's an affordable way to drive off with a new GM vehicle. And it might even give you something you wouldn't mind carrying around.
Brown & Company, going down. George Brown here. Experienced investors come to Brown & Company for lower rates, like our $29 flat rate, which means commission rates up to 86% lower than regular discounters, plus a 10% volume rebate and up to 2% on margin. But it's not a free ride. We only take market-savvy investors. Call for our free information kit. Oops, went a little bit too low. Brown & Company, who do those other guys think they're kidding?
Our distribution costs are up again, way up. We need some smart answers now.
Maybe we need someone to start asking the right questions.
It's time to call Ruan, the transportation management professionals. Ruan works to learn your business, find the source of your distribution problems, and recommend solutions to reduce costs. Start asking the right questions. Call for your free Right Questions kit today. Ruan, improving quality through knowledge.
At BASF, we don't make the mattress, we make it softer. We don't make the boots, we make them drier. We don't make the house, we make it livelier. We don't make the snowboard, we make it stronger. At BASF, we don't make a lot of the products you buy, we make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
Tonight on CNN's Larry King Live, U.S. Commerce Secretary Ron Brown aboard a plane which crashed in the Balkans. Friends and colleagues talk about the man, his mission, and the terrible events of the day. Tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
A major late-breaking story from California where a federal judge has overturned the state court conviction of Lincoln savings and loan boss Charles Keating. Keating convicted in that case. The judge ruling that the judge's instructions to the jury were flawed, and the judge in the case, Lance Ito. Keating was convicted of fraud and conspiracy. Well, Walt Disney's on-again, off-again love affair with baseball is apparently on again. This is one love affair dominated by very tough negotiations. Disney and the city of Anaheim have reached a tentative agreement that paves the way for Disney to buy the California Angels. Disney reportedly to put up $70 million of the $100 million cost of renovating Anaheim Stadium. In return, Disney to control almost all stadium revenues. The deal had stalled over terms of the stadium renovation, and at one point Disney had said the deal is dead. Well, recapping our top story tonight, a military aircraft carrying Commerce Secretary Ron Brown crashed today in the Balkans. There were a total of 33 people on the plane, about a dozen of them U.S. business executives, and all are presumed dead. That is Moneyline for this Wednesday evening. Thanks for being with us. Good night from New York. Crossfire coming up next with Robert Novak. Bob?
Lou, all America has been watching an amateur video of Southern California cops mercilessly pounding somebody with a baton. Replaying the Rodney King tape? No, this is new. Riverside County deputy sheriffs dealing with illegal immigrants. The question, is it isolated police brutality or a disturbing pattern? Next on Crossfire.
Lou, NFS 783.
784.
Closed captioning was provided by Bell Atlantic, the heart of communication.
Sunday, 10 years after the world's worst nuclear accident. Could Chernobyl be a nightmare waiting to happen again? CNN presents Sunday,